Thomas Wilson, he's chairman and CEO of Allstate. Good to have you on.
I mean, the good news is everybody sees this as an opportunity. I don't think they're trying to create a win-win for each other. In most good negotiations, you try to help the other person come out with a win, and I don't see that here.
Well, you've got to operate.
Buys our product regardless of what happens to the economy, because either they're required by state or their banks. So we don't have to lay anybody off. But I think people keep talking about when is the deadline. The deadline was 2 months ago. People have done their plans, they've done their budgets. We're now thinking about what happens late in 2013, what happens in 2014. So, the clock is already passed. The shot clock's up. It's time to get it done.
That's what I said the other day. I said, look,
if you look at revenue, President Obama wants about twice what the Republicans are offering. If you look at spending, the Republicans want about twice what Obama's offering. They got to figure out how to come together on this. And they're arguing over rates or deductions, which makes no sense to me. I mean, it's like you want to go on a trip. We decide we're going on a trip together, so we're going to argue about whether we're taking a bus or a train.
Right.
It's like, just figure out how much money you want, then go figure out how the formulas work.
Right. And the White House.
You want to get the 1.6 trillion or the 800 billion from. But you ought to just call it out. I want to get it from people who make more than $250,000, as opposed to trying to lock people into a formula. Because whether you get it by raising the rates or lowering deductions really doesn't matter. What you really need is money.
Well, you put it so simple.
I do think that you need to provide incentives for people to keep growing their business, to make more money, and I think a really high progressive tax rate won't do that. But I do think, it's like if you raise the rates by a couple of points, it's not going to drive everybody crazy. So, but I do think what we have to do is get the government out of this industrial policy where every time we turn around, they want something done, they pass a tax law, they get people to invest in it, then they turn around and blame you for taking advantage of the tax law. First they call it incentives, then they call it loopholes. And I think we have to get the government out of that part of the business. That tax code's got to be changed.
Right, you're going to pay
when the recession was on and state governments were having a hard time. And we just had too much. We had about $26 billion. Now we're down to 13. And I feel good about where we're at 13 billion. But we reduced it for really 4 reasons. If you're loaning somebody money, right, you want to make sure they got income to pay you. You want to make sure they got a decent balance sheet. You got to like the management team, and you got to like governance. In many of these states, we didn't like all 4 of them. So, we thought they didn't have any money, they weren't generating enough tax revenues. Their governance was terrible, and the management didn't seem like they wanted to pay anybody back. So we said, we're just going to get smaller. So we got a lot smaller municipal debt.
Hurricane Sandy?
For us, I toured the damage yesterday, and it's all the devastation you'd expect. So I saw Breezy Point, I was in Toms River, so I saw all the place pick themselves up and get going again. And then the community spirit. So I'm out with like our agency owners, and they're hugging their customers. You go by the VFW hall, they're passing out food and water. You have motorcycle clubs passing out water. So that's the nice part. I mean, that's what makes America great. We could